Oh my God. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Friday News Lunch from the Bucks County Beacon. I'm KEVIN Mahoney. Each week, we'll serve up the week's top stories affecting our communities and the nation. Today, I am once again joined by the owner and publisher of the Beacon, Emily Smith. Yes, we're here for another power lunch, everybody, and we're going to need it. We're going to need it. We'll hope you'll join us live every Friday at noon on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X. We'll get to that.
For now.
Or right on the Beacon's website at buckscountybeacon.com. Look, and remember, you can get all the detailed election results on the Bucks County Beacon's website. Just click on the big yellow button that says 2024 election results at the top of the page. You can follow along with us today as we kind of break down some of that data. And look, because we're going to need independent, community-supported, progressive media in the weeks and months and years ahead. There could not be a better time to take a moment to head over to buckscountybeacon.com and click on the Support the Beacon button and become a supporter today. Become a monthly subscriber, supporter for as little as $5 a month, yearly supporter for as little as $50 a year, or you can even drop a one-time donation to help keep the Beacon's critical lens focused and sustainable. This week has certainly been a gut punch and raises immediate concerns about what the next 4 years will bring. But as always, as we always do on this show, we'll come back to the amazing organizing and community work that is not going away now that the election is over. That's our hope and the foundation upon which we will continue to build, and that the Beacon will continue to shine a light on. So rather than going through a bunch of headlines today, because I think we know what the headlines are, let's get right to it, shall we? Emily, happy Friday, I guess.
Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God. Okay, let's go there. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Fridays. It gives us a legitimate reason to go out and have a beverage of choice.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Well, obviously, this is effectively a little postmortem on the day, on the week. I mean, this is the election on Tuesday, the Donald Trump getting victory and coming back for another 4 years of carnage, this time with Project 2025 in his back pocket, and a whole lot of stuff. But, you know, before I don't want to get all doom and gloomy here right off the bat. Let me just go to you. Like, you know, you've been following this stuff. You've been involved on the ground level for a long time. And I'm curious about what your kind of just initial takeaways at this point are of how you read this election.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say on election day, when I was volunteering at the polls, I picked the busiest portion of the day, 4 to 6 p.m. Should be rocking and rolling. And in my town, there were no lines. And I immediately was like, there are no lines here. That's strange. Like, it's a small town, and there's like a number of precincts, but there was no lines. And I was like, well, that's not good for voter turnout. I got this adorable sticker because my town is a blue dot in a red county. There are lots of those around, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that my big take on the election, on election night, I was worried right out of the gate. And every time as soon as I saw the Philly results start to come in, and they weren't huge.
Yep.
I was very, very worried, because I know all the state reps in Philly, I know how much they win by. It's at least 85% that they have, if not more. So that's when I knew that there was a problem. In retrospect, looking back at it, of course, for a day, I was pretty sure that everyone's a misogynist, including half the women in the United States. which is really disappointing because only 53% of women in the United States voted for Kamala Harris.
Yep.
And that's a hard pill to swallow. That's
Yep. These are initial exit polls, and I know that this data is going to change as it gets refined and things like this.
Yeah.
And they're always notoriously kind of not 100% accurate. But I'll tell you, the one figure that stuck out for me and pointed a direction in the future is 92% of Black women voted for Kamala Harris.
Right.
That means Black women should be leading the Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned right now.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, like, you want to talk about the most powerful and consistent and overlooked constituency in the Democratic kind of party. I mean, you look right there, like, in a lot of ways.
But simultaneously, like, what's the percentage of, like, what percentage of the electorate is Black women? Is it?
Totally.
I mean, I think Black people in the United States is only like 16% or something, right?
Yep.
So there's not enough people there.
No, totally. I'm saying this is my initial reaction when I'm looking at those numbers, right? I get all the practical, like, stuff once you start thinking about it. But then when I'm looking at those results, that's my first thing is like, well, this is clear.
Right.
It's like
the other thing I posted on Facebook immediately on Wednesday morning, a link to the movie Idiocracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not saying people are dumb that voted for Trump, but I think they are, or uneducated, and they can all come back and tell me that we're elitist, brain elites for having a college education. But like, that's it. I think the big problem is that it was never a policy conversation. I talked to Cyril about it the other day, and he was like, we should have talked about more policy. I was like, no one cares. No one cares what you actually do. They just want you to say that you're going to fix it, whatever it is that's their pain point. It's basic marketing. And the Democratic Party did a bad job of marketing.
Well, I have a couple things on that, right? So on the one hand, is that, I think Kamala, I will say this, I think Kamala Harris ran an unbelievable campaign for having 108 days, right? I will tell you, in Bucks County, there has never been a ground operation, at least as long as I've lived here, like this operation. There were people at my door, like the Get Out the Vote weekend, 3 rounds of different sets of canvassers were in the neighborhood. Right. And you know what? They knew where the other ones were too. Right. It wasn't an accident that just random people were showing up. Oh, God, I'm sorry. No, like, there were local, like, countywide, there were local Democrats, there were countywide, and there were kind of like Get Out the Vote organizations coming in here.
Yeah.
There was. And so, I don't know what you do with 108 days in an American electoral system to run a better campaign. Now, look, we could go back and forth all day long as should she done this or that, or what about this? Frankly, I think you're starting in such a deficit, such a deep hole to begin with, that I just, unlike what I saw in the Hillary Clinton campaign, right, when Trump was elected the first time, where the Clinton people were sitting there looking at their numbers from behind their desk and their computers, and they were not out on the ground, to the point where people couldn't get a hold of a yard sign. People had never been contacted, right? They were just relying upon models and not people. This was not that situation at all.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great campaign. I had people door knock my door, which doesn't normally happen.
Right.
That's super voter Dem thing. But I had a GOTV person at my house on Monday. And I know my mom was knocking doors literally on Tuesday, to make sure people got out to vote. And yet, I think that all of the data shows that less Democrats came out to vote. Right?
Well, it does. And although I'm not, I was trying to track down, I know I have this saved someplace, and I've spent like an hour trying to find it and then gave up this morning. because I was looking at the precinct by precinct numbers, and I somewhere I have this chart that was comparing the last 3 electoral cycles by precinct in Bucks County, right? And then I think there was, I think in that might have been Cumberland County too as well. There might have been some kind of really key, kind of important swing districts, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that was interesting is that if you look at like in the Percy borough where I'm at, the numbers of Democrats who came out and vote went up from the last election. That increased, but the Republicans' vote increased by more.
Yeah.
Right. So Biden won the Percy borough last time round.
Yeah.
And there were more Democrats that came out to vote here and things like this, but there were that many more Republicans.
Right.
And I recognize in other counties and other precincts that's a different situation.
Yeah.
But I think sorry.
Yeah, I would just say like I looked at the numbers in my borough, and I mean, my borough is a blue dot, and all Democrats won in my borough. Every single one. It wasn't close. But the numbers didn't seem high. You know, like, I mean, we actually, like, in my borough, we actually have a lot of voter turnout for municipal election cycles. Because it's local politics, and that's what's important, is who's running your local government.
I don't know. I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. But it just didn't seem like there was that, like, it wasn't like other years where I've seen huge lines, and then you go, okay, there's more mail-in ballots. Okay, sure. And the Republicans said, let's do mail-in ballots, right? So maybe that decreases at all what election day looks like. I don't know. But, like, I mean, I think the number said Trump got the same amount of votes this year as he did in 2020. But he won this year. And he won the popular vote by 5
And he won the popular vote. Yep. You know, I think
losing it by millions. Right. He won it by millions.
Right. So 100%, like nationwide, certainly that was the case. Certainly that Democrats did not turn out to vote in the ways they had before. So it's not,
or
and it's like
they voted for Trump.
All right. And I mean, there were some shifts there. I mean, again, I think I'm really going to be, I've been really holding off and trying to kind of like make conclusions. Right. Because I think it's way too freaking early to really do, but you know, it's true, right? I mean, that one alone, we're going to see what the popular vote numbers, where did that happen? Right. I'm curious about certain things like, for example, did we see a significant decrease in voter turnout in solidly blue states like California and New York?
Yes.
Right. Because they're like, what the hell does it matter?
I read something about that this morning.
Oh, really?
This morning in New York, voter turnout was lower amongst Democrats in places where they knew that they were going to carry it.
Yep. So, I mean, what that means ultimately, I don't know. We're going to see. The other thing that, you know, to your point about the marketing point, one of the things this morning on Morning Joe, Anand Giridharadas, who's like one of my like go-to gurus of like communication, he was on there. One of the things he made a really good point. He's got I subscribe to his newsletter. It's called The Ink. And he was saying the same thing in there. He's like, where is the left's Joe Rogan? Right. And what he meant by that, like, as he was talking about on the show thing, is like, look, he's what the right has been absolutely brilliant at doing is taking people from this low level anxiety of feelings they have over, say, for example, the price of eggs, right? Which is a real feeling, right? When the prices are up, and then walking them through over time and attaching them to this like Christian nationalist, proto-fascist kind of ideology as a way of kind of connecting it.
Right.
And he was making that case is that there is nothing on the center left that does that. And and I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, remember, the Beacon is a perfect example of this, right? Of what it means to build an institution that is going to, over time, is going to establish narrative, is going to establish kind of like a place of reporting and following through things up over time. And there's been decimation of those kind of networks, right? And the center left. Like, I think that Democrats in the center left, right, have largely leaned on existing mainstream institutions to carry the water instead of building these kind of ones that are articulating our voice.
Right. But also, I mean, trust me, I did some social searching.
Yeah.
And some crying. Because I've spent almost 4 years working on this project, right? And is the project to elect Democrats? No. The project is to make high information voters so they can make good decisions. But when it's the first time that Bucks County didn't go blue in 8 elections or something.
Right. Something like that. Yep. Exactly.
Something ridiculous that I'm like,
George Bush. So George W. Bush. Yep.
Yeah. Like, I'm just like, what have I even been doing? Are we shouting into the void? Am I currently at this moment shouting into the void? No. Am I just, is it just a mirror of other, liberal minded Democrats that are reading our stuff? I know that's not the case on Newsbreak where our stuff goes out, because the Republicans at least look at the titles to our articles and they comment. But, it's a question of like messaging and how do you connect with those people who feel like everything's fake? If everything's fake, if the media's lying, if the government's corrupt, how do you change the situation? It's impossible, right? It's impossible. If everyone's in their courts and that's just it, I mean, I've seen enough stuff in the last couple days from Republicans on various spots that I'm just like, they're like, see, we told you. I'm like, but what are you telling me? That you're uninformed about how economics works? Are you uninformed about what the government does? Because I just think that there's, such a disconnect between why we hire people for the job of government. Like, what do you want them to do? And why do you think they're all corrupt? Because like people give their lives to work in government positions to try to make America a better place, and then a failed businessman, a TV personality is the one that they're like, well, he's going to fix it because he's, not from the government world. So then the question is, do the Democrats need to find their non-politician, their non-long-term government worker who doesn't know anything about how government works? Is that who we put up next?
No, I don't.
Make any sense.
No, I don't think that's it. But I think that, look, this is where I think the lessons of Bernie Sanders' campaign are so critical.
I wanted to vote for Bernie.
Man, I was like, I actually, when at the beginning of this round of elections, I was actually saying, please don't run Bernie, right? Because I'm like, I mean, I really firmly believe that we got to get away from old guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
and
he's old.
Right. I mean, it's like, I mean, seriously, but the whole idea about being able to communicate, like what Bernie has done his entire career, right? And there's real limitations into the way he delivers his message and the way all the kind. So I don't want to kind of make this sound like Bernie's the solution. That's not my point. My point is only that he's a way of talking about the issues that are starting from where people are at.
Right.
Not where the data is, not what the Democratic Party consultants are kind of saying is the correct messaging to kind of, no, starting from people's experiences, right? And talking about the feeling. And, as someone who studies rhetoric and looks at social movement rhetorics and all this other kind of stuff, I mean, this is like even George Lakoff said this years ago about framing. Is that, you've got to be able to have a way of putting information, right? Information, facts by themselves do not set anybody free. They don't work on their own. And if they don't have a frame for which to put those facts, it just goes one in one ear, out the other. It's not because they're idiots, right? It's because there's no place to put them. And in my mind is that this is where the again, the broad, like center left has not done that kind of work for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And, and I think that, just reflection of the way of, and I don't want to, I'm not, I really don't want to make this like, I'm not like to make it too, I recognize in my language right now, I'm painting in too broad of a brush, but I'm saying, I'm talking like high level leadership of the decisions that have been made in the Democratic Party. I could tell you, I'm growing up in central New York, right? Utica, New York, when the factories were, and all the businesses were being shut down because of NAFTA. The face of NAFTA was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Right. And that was just true.
Right.
And I could, we could say like, look, it is true. He just basically carried out the Reagan agenda. That's what NAFTA was, right? NAFTA was built and concocted during Reagan, right? But guess what? It was Bill Clinton's face that's all over that.
Right.
And that kind of crap sticks.
Right.
And so, and what was left in the absence of that? I mean, that was the kind of the tech boom era, right? And then Democrats started getting into bed with like high level managerial professionals and the tech bros and thinking that's going to save us. And we don't need to actually do the work of kind of supporting labor. We don't need to do the work of supporting like communities. We don't need to do that kind of support. And we can give tough love to people who are on kind of like on assistance, right? Or kind of who are poor at the low. That was my family growing up. And I'm like, I'll tell you, remember I was in college when Clinton was elected. And I can remember how angry I was at that man for saying that shit about people in my community.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just as anecdotal. I get it. But, seeing that kind of that messaging and I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm very trying to like not go into like, diatribe mode here, but
it's okay. We're having a therapy session today.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah.
We're working it through.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you were from Utica. I went to college in Rochester.
Get out of here. Yeah. That's I went to school. Yeah. I went to school in Syracuse and then I lived there for 8 years. And then, I know Rochester really well. I've got family there. My mom grew up in Niagara Falls. And so, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Central upstate New York guy. I am. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear the accent now.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I start talking about Utica and I'm going to be talking like Utica.
People always think I have an upstate New York accent when I talk too much.
Yeah. See there.
Especially after I have a couple beverages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I only spent 6 years there. Yeah. Okay. So we're having a therapy session. There's lots of questions to be answered. And I don't think there's going to be a good answer, but I think that the most important thing, like here's what's coming to me as I'm like reading all the stuff, looking at all the data. What's coming to me is that Democrats should spend some time talking to real people.
Yeah.
And that's what's missing, an active listening campaign. Like, what is it that you actually need? And how can we help you with that? And while, like, I thought the $25,000 tax credit for, first-time homebuyers, I thought that was a great idea. I thought that was going to put people on board. But they're like, I can't afford to pay my rent right now. So how am I going to buy a house? Because my credit's screwed, because I'm in debt, because it's been years of like expensive everything,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the harder part. Like it's really hard to, like what was Donald Trump's message? It was, well, I'm going to fix everything. It's going to be great.
And let's make fun of all these people and disparage people and kind of talk about how
those guys that are stealing your jobs as illegal immigrants, we're gonna round them all up and we're gonna send them back to their countries. I hope that something great comes from all of this. I hope gas is $1.80 in February. I hope eggs go back to being under $1. That sounds amazing, but like, there's like, I think it's just like these basic things. Like, why eggs got expensive? Like, besides inflation, like there was an avian flu outbreak twice in the last 4 years.
Yep.
There was not enough eggs. That's it. Like, if the chickens are dead, they can't bring you eggs. And that seems to be why it would be more expensive. It's supply and demand. It has nothing to do with the government. Like, the government didn't do that.
This is where I get really frustrated with Democrats, right? I'm talking top level, because it's like two things on this, right? I mean, this is kind of like, for example, if this is a Republicans would have, like, Republicans don't give a shit about everyday people's and their costs. So let's be clear about that. Yeah. But I'm saying, if you are saying that but they have no problem with saying, okay, we're going to do this by fiat then, right? We're just going to, so the Biden administration, think about it like this. This is where I think there's at the top level, this consultant class, there is political malpractice that goes on in terms of the way that they run this party. And because I think that if the price of eggs are going up, you know what you do? You come out here, you have an executive order to subsidize egg prices to make sure that everyday Americans don't have to do this. But they're scared of subsidy because they're going to be called communists.
Right.
Which is insane to me. And so then if the Republicans say, no, you can't do
now anyways, it doesn't matter.
Totally. And so if you can say, like, you Republicans are going to come out, what are they going to say? They're going to say, like, no, you can't make prices lower. And then as a Democrat, you stamp that all over their foreheads. The Republicans want to keep egg prices high, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how is this hard?
Right.
It's not. When you had the child tax credit, like, I would have been, so why don't you spend some of those billions of dollars you're fundraising on messaging every freaking billboard? The Republicans want to take away the child tax credit that made your life better. Republicans want to send kids back into poverty. And look, yes, Biden said it here and there, but that message went nowhere.
Yeah.
Not in this media environment.
Yeah. I think the worst part, did you hear Biden's speech yesterday?
Oh my God. Just go home. I'm sorry.
The worst part where it was like, I keep telling people, because I've heard a million times, Biden hasn't done shit, right? And I know he has, because I work in municipal government, right?
Yep.
So I know all of the money we're getting for infrastructure. But he literally mentioned in his speech, he's like, we've done great things. It's been a historic presidency. And all of this stuff is just happening because bureaucracy runs slowly.
Yep.
And it's like, yes, yes, but why are you telling people now? Like, it's too late.
Exactly.
I hope that they realize that you did that and they don't give the credit to Trump, but like, tell people we weren't just, we weren't blowing smoke up your ass. This is why you have new roads, but they would be like, well, there's construction everywhere. Okay, well, everything is failing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's so much stuff like that where I'm just like, if you could just explain to people what good you're doing for them and have them be able to connect to that. You know what I mean?
And I think the order of the messaging, right, is completely backwards from, again, top level Democrats. Like, well, here's how Democrats want to explain things out. Well, in the infrastructure bill, you've got to understand a few things, right? You've got to understand the way that the policy first is over here. Then what's going to happen is and then people are tuned out by that point.
Yeah.
They're done.
Right.
You've got to start with, like, we're going to fix your roads. Remember what Josh Shapiro did with I-95? We want to do that to America. There's your message. Right? And then when they say, like, and then you know what you do then? And they say, well, why haven't we seen it yet? Say, because Republicans are holding up the money in the House.
Right.
How is this hard?
Right.
This is like, you start with the deliverable. Like, you don't put it at the end of the fourth paragraph as some sort of like, lonely conclusion to like your policy wonkiness. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine that I've known since first grade, second grade, something like that. She's pretty high up in HHS. I don't even know what her title is, but she's like under, like a couple levels under the director of Health and Human Services. And I texted her the day after the election. I was like, "Hey Beth, I love you. I hope RFK Jr. isn't your boss soon."
Oh my God.
And she was like, "Oh my God, I know." But what I want to say about that is I was like, "What are you going to do?" And she goes, "Well, normally I'm mad that bureaucracy moves so slowly, but in this case, bureaucracy moves very slowly." She's like, "I think I'm going to be all right for a little while, because they don't know what they're doing." So, yeah. I don't know.
My God. I don't know. I would like to say, I almost lost my shit this morning when I heard, well, actually it was last night when I was,
Every day? Is it every
yeah,
day?
but I was, I've been really, I think the difference, I mean, the difference for me for this election now and from his first election is that the first election, number one, obviously it was like all the setup was that Hillary Clinton is going to win. Hillary Clinton's going to win. I mean, I was like convinced that was not going to happen. I'm like, I just don't trust it. I don't trust it. And then the night of the election, I finally allowed myself to believe that she was going to win. And then it got freaking wrecked. Right. But I mean, and so much, I mean, there's so much of that was because, that first time around, everything he was saying was so far beyond political norms, that was so far beyond what people are supposed to say in public, was the kind of thing that would have sank any other campaign. The overt misogyny, the overt, a sexual assault reference, and the celebration of sexual assault, and the kind of like holding up people that are of like mind. That was just like, what the fuck? And Scott, I'm sorry, but then and then to kind of go on, and then to see that it was like just a hit.
Yeah.
On the one hand, this time around, I would say a lot of folks that I've a lot of people I talk are prepared for this, but it's like, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's like, okay, we know we got to fight. We know we got to do this kind of stuff over here. But the fact that there wasn't people like yelling at each other at the polls like there was during that election also means that this is normalized now.
Yeah.
Right. This is part of our political environment, right? This is the communication context. This is the social context in which we're in, which is in some ways worse.
Yeah. And I've been saying for a couple of days now, there's no way we're electing a woman president unless we have 2 female nominees. And then it'll be the white Republican woman. So bring it on, Nikki Haley. I'll see you in 4 years. Let's go. I'll take it. I'll take Nikki Haley. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, please don't give me JD Vance in 4 years. You know what I mean? If we make it through Trump.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens,
Yep.
I think misogyny is terrible. The normalization of all this stuff is crazy. I saw it of course I have friends that are posting stuff on Facebook about how they feel about it. And, it was, this guy had a picture that was like, you all elected a rapist and you're okay with it. And like this guy comments and he goes, I don't care about his personal issues.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, no. He's like, he didn't get convicted of rape. And I was like, now I'm going to have to comment. So let me just say this again. Because we live in the patriarchy. Because men make the rules and they don't want to be held responsible for their actions, there's a statute of limitation on rape. So women can only file rape charges like in the first 7 years, I think it is, unless they're like under a certain age. And so Trump did get convicted in civil court of sexual abuse. He did. People need to know that.
This is what I said, a student basically made a similar argument to me. And I was like, well, that was civil court. I'm like, why was it civil court? And it was like deer in headlights.
Yeah.
Right. And I basically said just what you said to them. This is why.
The patriarchy.
Right. Basically, it's like 7 years. You have a window. Right.
Yeah.
So good luck if you have to experience such a brutal trauma of kind of saying, oh, well, make sure that you get that done right away, because after that.
Yeah. Don't worry that no one will believe you.
Right.
You know, like, because there's like multiple levels. I mean,
Exactly.
like, I just, you know, I said to someone else, you know, yesterday, like, my daughter's 15. She's in her formative young womanhood age, the age that is most dangerous for things like rape and sexual assault. The fact that she could have not only her rights taken away from her if she needed to get an abortion, right? But also rape culture is being normalized again.
Yeah.
And it's becoming okay. Like, what happened to Me Too? What happened to it? We're still here. Most of us have had some kind of sexual assault happen to us. It's literally every woman.
Yeah.
It's not like a small amount of women. It is literally most of them. And I think the women that voted for Trump, it's probably happened to them too.
Yep.
But they've normalized it because they live in a deeper patriarchal situation where they think it's okay.
Yep.
Guess what? It's not okay. My body. You know, like,
period.
Yeah.
My End body, of sentence. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I think at this point, this is what you talked about right at the beginning too, as well, is like, you know, we have words, right? I mean, on the left, right, you have words like patriarchy, right? You have words like kind of capitalism. You have words that kind of like that, like, you know, neoliberalism that help explain things like white supremacists, neoliberal, like patriarchal capitalism, right? And all this stuff. That language, but that's an analytical language, right? That's an analytical language that, like, you know, you come to this stuff. And then I think it's like, well, then how do we then engage with this? Right? Like in such a way, like, I'll tell you that this is what, when I knew we were in trouble, this was trouble at the polls. I saw there was 3, say, young black kids, right? I should say kids. They were probably like, you know, but they were like 19, maybe 20, like young men, Team Trump stickers coming in, happy as all can be. Several young women, like if like I remember this in the midterms, seeing this for the first time. They're like, what is going on here? People that I would have just kind of like labeled without thinking about it, like, oh, here's like, you know, oh, look, here's a hippie woman, right? You know, got like this, tattoos, kind of braided hair, coming in with like 3-4 kids, proud Trump supporters, homeschooling their kids.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like late 20s, early 30s women, white women.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing like, so, you know, this is the challenge, right? The challenge is like, and this is why I think, again, where Democrats at the top level don't get this, have it internalized this in terms of messaging. When you say like women, right, there's an analytical woman, which you want to protect and have equal in this society, right? But actual women are very different. Yeah. And the fact that you have the second time around to having a majority, again, a majority of white women voted for Trump, right? Yeah. That it shows you by just saying by saying we're going to protect women doesn't kind of, well, I shouldn't even use it like that because that's what freaking Trump says now.
Yeah.
And that's like deep.
Like, oh, good. Take care of me, daddy. Sorry.
Well, yeah. Or like this whole trad life crap, right? That is all over social media.
God. It's the worst. My husband was watching trad life videos, like, I want to say 6-8 months ago. And I was like, what are you watching? He's like, well, these guys are crazy. And I was like, you're perpetuating it. You're perpetuating it by watching it, and they're going to turn you against me, you know, by saying I'm too independent, you know, like, because I have a job and make money, you know?
Yeah. I don't know.
But you know, how many women long for the easier days when all they had to do was do the dishes, clean the house, and take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Because that was so easy.
Right. I do that plus have multiple jobs. Right. But when it comes down to simple things, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make your life easier. All you have to do is be here to take care of me and the kids.
Yeah.
That's, who doesn't want that? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need a job, baby.
I remember this is stuff I remember reading about, like in grad school, right? We're looking at kind of like, the cult of true womanhood, right? Kind of like 18th century shit.
Yeah.
Which was, this is kind of like, this is how patriarchy was enshrined and understood, that it's never just, especially within religious communities, especially within it's like, this is like, there's a value that is assigned, right? It's not simply just like, I think sometimes that because of an analytic kind of understanding of these things, right? It could be like, okay, it's just kind of like overt oppression, right? It's like, no, it's this other vision, which has always been oppressive, which has always been about like ordering a hierarchy, which always been about kind of keeping women kind of separated and less than men. But it nonetheless holds out this fiction of that you matter.
Right.
Right. And you'll have pie in the sky when you die.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it ain't easy. No. It ain't easy. And, I don't know, dude. I don't know. The whole woman thing, I've been a card carrying feminist for a long time. So like all of this is very hard for me to digest. But I think it's all there, right? And going back to talking about messaging, like you got all these trad guys on YouTube, right? You got Joe Rogan. I used to like Joe Rogan. You had Dana White. I mean, yeah. And what do the Democrats have? Joe Scarborough.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God.
It's not enough, like it's,
I've hated, my biggest, here's the, my biggest, it was actually painful for me when Rachel Maddow got on her Russia stuff. Right. Is because, I mean, again, I remember having multiple arguments with people about this, saying like, look, the Russia thing is real, right? What's going on there is real. It is not the only story in the world. It is not the explanation of everything here, but it was like a year and a half of Russia. I used to love Rachel Maddow because she would cover the stories in depth in ways that other journalists were not doing. Right. And I remember after like the Mueller report came out and after those kind of stuff, I added her in a things like, can we have our Rachel back now? Right. It was like, obviously no explanation, but it was like, that was like one of the few, even Chris Hayes, when he had his Saturday morning show was like interesting, bringing on interesting people and having like real conversations over difficult stuff. And now it sounds more and more like just a Democratic Party hack. And it's like,
there's so much of that. And it's, it's an echo chamber. And I think it gives Democrats a false sense of security. And not to say Newsmax and Fox News aren't the same, because they are. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a cult of personality with Trump, right?
Yep.
That's the hard thing to be able to duplicate the other version of.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be a cult of personality. We want to be like a party for the people.
Ding, ding, ding,
but
ding,
apparently
ding.
We're not for the people. It's actually the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Is the party for the people. It's the real America. This is what I heard. This is what I've been reading. It's the real America.
Yeah, it's the white male hard hat America.
Yeah.
White male farmer America.
Yeah, I know. I want to look at this thing and I want to tell you if so. So we have this thing on the website. We've been meaning to talk about this today.
Yeah, let's do this.
I added it to our election results page so everyone can dive deep on data. Because I'm a data nerd, for better or worse. It's on the election results page. You can click the bottom at the link at the top of our website.
I'm just going to post it in chat right now too as well. So if everybody wants to check it out.
It shows all of the voting factors. This is like AP's vote cast. So they surveyed people after the election about why they voted, how they voted, and like there's voting factors, candidate traits, better handle other issues. So you can click on any of those, and then there's all sorts of questions that people answered, and you can see. But if voting factors has like the main "who did you vote for" question, and like 54% of men voted for Trump, and 46% of women voted for Trump. Right, but then if you go to education, 55%. No college degree voted for Trump, right? 50%, 42% of college degree voted for Trump. But here you go, right? 56% of white people voted for Trump. 16% of Black people. 42% of Latino people, and 41% of another race. 61% of Protestants and other Christians voted for Trump. 61%. 54% of Catholics voted for Trump. There's so much information here, and it's just like, it's I don't know, throw my hands in the air. Go read the data, people, and tell us what you figure out and get back to us.
It'd be great.
What should we be reporting on? How should we say it? I'd love to know.
Well, I do think though that, here's I think one of the challenges, and this is one of the things, and I don't want to sound just like, always coming back to being a booster for the Beacon, but I'm going to do it anyways. Is that the challenge, and this firsthand from the work that you do, like on the ground, like with the Democratic Party, right? Or, like at the election level, at the local level. I've seen like what we've done in Bucks County with around the schools, right? The organizing that took place to beat back that threat, right? There's a reason why education is a target from the right, just in those numbers that Emily just pointed out, right? Because there's a discrepancy. More education you get, the less likely you are to vote for fascists, right?
Right.
But the challenge is
what a fascist is then.
Well, exactly. Right, exactly. That happened in the past. There's no such thing of it anymore. It's a historical term. Right.
What's a Nazi?
I have arguments with one of my friends who's like, well, the actual definition of I'm like, shut up. It's like, just like, are you kidding me? You're going to do like this kind of thing? But my point is that, one of the things that I've been increasingly trying to find ways of talking about this, because the people on the ground in local areas that are doing this organizing in the Democratic Party are doing amazing work. And so it's not like that the Democratic Party is this one thing, right? The people who are in local that are organizing on the ground are the ones that should be listened to.
Yeah.
And I remember I interviewed Diana Lagerman kind of like a couple of years ago. That's when the school board stuff, when she was running. Yeah. And she said the one lesson that she learned the first time around is that they knew that there was a lot of problems with what was happening in the school boards when they were talking about, they're talking about critical race theory and all this stuff. And they said, we need to address this. And they literally had Washington, D.C. Democratic Party consultants come and say, oh, no. You need to ignore that and stick with this messaging. And these are first time candidates, right? They're like trying to figure out like, okay, like, what do I know? Right. And like, yeah, these people come in and then like, like having people doubt their own knowledge of their local communities because they're supposed these experts. And then by the time that these candidates, like the Democratic Party candidates were like, you people are screwing us up, it was too late.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but they learned their lesson, right? And this is part of what organizing over time on the ground is all about, right? They learned their lesson, came back, and they swept those things. They kicked those people out of office.
Right.
And any party worth its salt would see this and saying, what did you do? How can we learn from you? How can we support your work?
Right. Yeah. Wait, can I just say this about this most recent election in terms of this, like my local Democratic committee, and all the campaigns that came through? I showed you my sticker, my blue dot in a red sea, right? So I live in Cumberland County. We live in a little town called Camp Hill. It's across the river from Harrisburg. And we've gone blue since 2017, I think, every year across the board, because there's been significant amounts of organizing at the Democratic committee level. The county party comes to us to ask what we did, right? This election, we had people knocking all our doors. Excuse me, you don't need to come here. We got it. You know, take that message to those places that are purple. We're not purple anymore. We have a ground game that is, you know, pretty unbeatable at this point. You know, I mean, my town is highly educated, right? There's lots of people that work in Harrisburg here for major government, major organizations. I think, you know, over 44% of our population in Camp Hill is college educated. And we have more people like that moving in. But it was, when I grew up in this town, it was 100% Republican, 98% Republican, right? So it has been a long battle for that. But we got there and we're trying to keep it. And the only problem that we have now is finding enough participants in town who want to do the actual work of governing. Right. Because people are like, hey, I go out and vote. Hey, I'll help you with, you know, putting Post-it notes on people's doors. But then we're like, hey, do you want to be on borough council or school board? And they're like, oh, I don't have time for that. You know, and so like for us right now in our town, we're trying to build a bench. And it comes down to straight up marketing. You know, like you have to have a funnel, right? Get people to join your Democratic committee. You know, tell them about all of the issues, because people just don't know. They know what they should vote for generally, but you have to tell them why it's important locally. And then you have to get them into some volunteer role. But there's 1 million volunteer roles in my town for all different organizations. And everyone's spread thin because we're a small town. And, you know, I think this same thing could happen other places, and yet it doesn't, right? But the national parties, the state campaigns, I mean, I went to a happy hour last year and I had 4 candidates for the challenge to Perry, right? 4 candidates come to our happy hour, which was just supposed to be us Democratic Party committee getting together to hang out and have a couple margaritas. And we were like bombarded. And I'm like, you're in the, like, yeah, we'll vote for one of you. Figure out who has the best message. Come back to us. Like,
exactly.
What are you doing? You know? And damn, Janelle ran a great race. She ran a great race. Let's get him next time, Janelle. We got him. We're close. So close.
Yep.
You know.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, there we are.
Yeah, we should talk about Senator Casey's campaign.
I was just about to say, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you take that?
Okay, so we posted last night that McCormick beat Casey because that's what the AP told us. The AP literally has a thing that says when they call races. They say they call races when there is not enough votes left to be counted to make up the difference. Senator Casey's campaign contacted us, and so we put out an article this morning. He says there's 100,000 votes left to be counted. He's down by like 34,000, something like that at this point. And a bunch of it's provisional ballots in places like Philly. Guess what? They believe, I think they know there's 15 to 20,000 provisional ballots in Philadelphia, uncounted at this point, which is going to be 90% Casey, right? Like,
yeah,
it's going to be a huge number. So,
and this goes to explain, right? And this is what you were saying before the show, right? Why Casey was like, we're not conceding this race yet, even though McCormick has come out and claimed victory and said this is all over.
Right. But then the Inquirer just reported this morning that Dave McCormick filed 2 lawsuits to try to discredit or not count provisional ballots in Philadelphia. Why is that, Dave McCormick? Like, if you won, if there's no way that these votes matter, why would you try to challenge them? But he did. So guess what? It doesn't matter today what the AP said yesterday, because there is a battle going on. And I don't think Senator Casey's going to give up his seat, easily. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much you know about Senator Casey. He's a numbers guy. Mm-hmm. He's an on the ground guy. He's got his finger on the pulse of where the votes are coming from, how many there are. Like, he counts stuff, and I believe him. I believe he knows where the votes are. I've watched him count this stuff before. Like, he had boards. I don't remember what election that was that. In 2020?
Yeah, they were awesome. They were like, it was my go-to on social media to find out what's going on, because he had these awesome maps. He was going up like this like little room, just kind of pointing out district by district.
Right.
It's like,
right. If he says there's votes out there, I believe him. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the next week or two. I think that they have to start counting provisional ballots by today, next week. I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff about when they have, but they started counting them already. And speaking of that, I got another email from one of my former colleagues who is working with the DNC, and Mobilize, they have a link to volunteer to help cure ballots across the country. Not because they think that, anything untoward happened, but because there's maybe millions of provisional ballots, maybe across the country. Mm-hmm. So can we put that, Kevin, can you put that link in the chat?
Yep. This is for the, which one is this?
The Mobilize link.
That's the Mobilize one. Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to help volunteer, it has it's some kind of, when you sign up, it looks like it's 13 hours or something, but you really only need to be able to participate and call people 2 or 3 hours. You just have to be able to, I guess the idea is they have to call people and get them to come in to sign their ballot, or, explain something, show some kind of thing to make sure that their votes are actually counted. So that's an important part of democracy. And usually it doesn't end up in presidential races or other races because it's not close, right? I think people are always like, I saw someone say, Well, why is it that it used to be that elections were over on election night and everything was known then? Because it wasn't close.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't close. And these days, it's always close.
Always close.
Except in those deep red states and deep red counties where it's not close, right? And that's why when the polls close, they're like, oh, guess what? Oklahoma's going to Trump, right? They knew the moment the polls closed.
Right. You can put that one like on an auto dial, right? Like, right. Okay, we're going to set this for 8 o'clock.
Moment
right.
The polls close.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all of this has always been around. It's just like provisional ballots. They don't count them unless they need them because it's close. So here we are.
Yep. So if you can help out right there, again, the link is in the chat. It came up on the screen, but it's in the chat too. The DNC has asked for help curing ballots. It's www.mobilize.us. And there's a lot of other stuff like DNC VoPro/event 738-494, or just read what's there in the chat. Right? It's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, but and if you want to read more about Senator Casey's stuff, check out our website. We've got it up there. Yeah, and I mean, like, here's the thing. And currently, the Casey McCormick split is 0.5%, which triggers an automatic recount. Mm-hmm. So they have to know how many there are in total before it can trigger the recount. And then that's when they recount everything across all of the counties in Pennsylvania.
So we would be looking at something just to play that out, right? So that if the ballots are then counted, right? Because now we'll see what happens with this lawsuit, right? But if they're counted, then at that point we can expect there to be a recount. Given how close it is, right? Yeah.
So I think there's Casey thinks there's 100,000 votes left to be counted, 20,000 of them being in Philadelphia. I saw things that Montgomery County has a bunch that haven't been counted too. So they need to be counted first, and then you find out that margin. And if it's 0.5% or less, then it'll trigger an automatic recount, and all of the county board of elections across Pennsylvania will recount all of those ballots to make sure the numbers are right.
Well, definitely. I encourage everybody, head over to buckscountybeacon.com and kind of follow this story, because this is the kind of reporting that you're going to get. I mean, this is the kind of story that is kind of important, and for us to be able to understand why it is that Casey is not doing it. And this is the thing again, Emily, like your insight that people got to go back and say, like, look, this is the kind of person Casey is, right? Having that memory of those maps about him going through here, that's the way he works. And I have to say, like, I don't know, like Bob Casey nearly kind of his campaigns as nearly as well as you do. But I also would say is like, I remember underestimating Bob Casey when he first took office and being like, oh God, right. Cause look, he's like more soft spoken. He's like, right. Exactly. The son of a governor, right. All this kind of stuff. But the guy has got, he's got some steel, and he's, he's not a person to walk away from a fight. Right. You might find that you might not share all of the guy's politics and everything like this, but I'll tell you, as a politician and as a, at that level, he knows he is not in the political malpractice campaign, like other category. He is someone who does it right. Yeah.
And also, Dave McCormick already went through this once in the primary against Mehmet Oz. It was 0.5%, and they had to do an automatic recount, and Oz won by some very small margin.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, Jersey beat Connecticut. What can you say? And that primary. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, McCormick knows the score. He already did this before, right? He knows the score, which is why he's filing lawsuits right now to try to make sure he can discount some of those ballots.
100%. Well, look, I want to give one shout out to last night. I went to this mass call for this organization. There's this great place. It's called weareworthfightingfor.org. There's organizers from like the Highlander School of Social Research. There's folks from SCIU, right? The president of the SCIU was on there. You had the head of the Working Families Party was on there. Pramila Jayapal was on that call. It's available on kind of online. You could go to weareworthfightingfor.org. The reason why I'm saying that, everyone, is like Ashley Henderson she kind of took the lead on that. She's got experience in the Highlander School, and her opening, I think, is like the kind of grounding organizational perspective that I think all of us can use right now. I mean, whether or not you kind of like wait to hear Jeremy Raskin at the end kind of come on and do his little kind of like, Washington, D.C. thing, to hear, especially in that kind of opening, we're hearing her about grounding, kind of like to see a perspective of critical hope that is rooted in material practices of organizing and togetherness, I think is worth everyone checking out, especially if you're feeling a little bit on the road to kind of taking a turn to despair. It was incredibly worthwhile. And you'll see, the vast majority, I want to say all but maybe 2 people on there are women organizers ahead of campaigns like Move On, of Indivisible, and a majority of people of color who have been doing this work in some of the worst conditions possible, and maintaining hope. And I think it's that kind of voices and consistently coming back to that can be really useful. So do check it out. It's called weareworthfightingfor.org. I will drop that into the chat too as well, if anybody's looking for that kind of resource at this point.
Yeah, I said the other day, I said to someone, hope is dangerous when fear and hate rule.
Yep.
Both ways.
100%. 100%. Well, Emily, is there anything that you want to leave folks with here before we sign off? Things coming up in the Beacon, things that you kind of, I mean, I know it's really early to kind of start thinking about, okay, what's the trajectory for the Beacon over here? But things you want to leave people with today.
Yeah. Cyril and I had a long conversation the other day about what's next for the Beacon. Mm-hmm. We're still working it out.
Yeah.
We're still working it out. And guess what? Funding is our number one problem. So there's a lot of things we want to do and we don't have money for it. And we're working on our budget for 2025 and trying to figure out what we can add and what we can maintain better. I think we're going to send out a survey in the coming weeks to really try to get a beat on what our readers want more of and what they want less of, and how we can work better with them and grow our audience and support the Beacon. If independent media wasn't important before,
exactly,
guess what?
Exactly. Well, and this is when I say,
long road ahead of us.
Indeed.
I literally said on election night, well, if Trump wins, we got plenty of stories to report for 4 years. So
exactly, and many more than you'll be able to possibly cover. Correct. Unless every single person out there kind of gets on board here. And I'm telling you, go ahead. Sorry.
We could cover our monthly costs if every one of our monthly readers gave $1.
Let that sink in.
Yeah. They don't. Guess what? Surprise, they don't.
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, I know, we all know this. Emily knows this better than anybody, right? That, she's not saying that, okay, look, you're having trouble making ends meet, right? That doesn't mean that, okay, we're talking just to you, right? But for other folks, right? Let's just put it this way. Know that there's going to be somebody that even that $1 a month that they might be concerned about. So guess what? Maybe kick in $2 a month. right? Maybe kind of do that. And this is what it means. This is what it means. This is what I was talking about with the like Anand Giridharadas on Morning Joe this morning, saying that you need to build this over time. This is not the kind of thing that you can turn on a dime. This is not the kind of thing that happens overnight. It's about intentionally building institutions for the purpose of sustaining our communities and democracy and progressive values. This is what it means to be part of that. It's just like when Emily was saying before, there's a lot of people say, yes, I came out and voted, but it's more difficult to get people to kind of do the work of governing, right? Yes, I could say that you have the right ideas. Great, you have the right ideas. However, in order to make sure that those ideas live and breathe and expand within there, we need a media infrastructure. I have said this over the years 1,001 times. We need to be intentional and deliberate in building out these institutions. And that, I hate to say it, means you. And it means me. It means everybody that's out there that's listening to this. Become a member of the Beacon. I'm telling you, buckscountybeacon.com, click on support the Beacon. And even if it's a one-time contribution that you can make, this is really important.
I'll go add a button today for $1 a month.
That's awesome. There you go. $1 a month.
It'll be up there in 10 minutes.
Fantastic. All right. So that's your challenge. That is your marching orders for today, is if you are not already supporting the Beacon, right, head on over there, even if you're clicking on that $1 a month. Right. We're going to kind of expand this. We're going to kind of support this institution. Right. And this is what I've said to you, I've said to everybody else before, is like, this is one of the reasons why I'm not doing Raging Chicken podcast stuff anymore, because it's saying we need to kind of build this institution together. We need to bring everyone in this space in order to build out this institution to make sure that it's sustainable and can do the critical work that is necessary. This is where it's at. Get on board, everybody. You betcha. You betcha. All right, everybody. So there's your marching orders, buckscountybeacon.com. You can check out all that data post-election. Go to, right at the top, there's that big kind of yellow button. Look at all the data, election results in here, and hit that support the Beacon button, and you'll be able to kind of become a supporter for as little as $1 a month, right? But click that $5 a month here and make sure to help out those people that really just can't kind of come kicking that money at this point. Emily, I know this has got to be a crazy busy time for you, but I appreciate you taking the time and being in the space today and putting up with my frustrations too as well.
I feel like we both got it, buddy. We both got it.
Well, good. I'm glad, because I know we're all going to be needing these spaces where we're going to be talking about it going forward. So
yeah, cheers to you. I hope you have more than one adult beverage this evening.
Yes, I plan on it. And I'm going to be playing games with my neighbors as I make cocktails for everybody as we do this together. And that's really important. Be with people as much as you can.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, Emily, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody tuning in today. And thank you, everybody who listens. Thank you for supporting the Beacon. Remember, support the Beacon. Go to buckscountybeacon.com, hit that button at the top, and become a supporting member of this invaluable resource we have right here in our backyard. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. And look, keep up the fight. Keep doing the awesome work that you're doing. And we'll be right there with you. Take care. Let's see if I get the music to play around there. Is it going to work? Look at this once again. There we go. We're going to get it worked out one of these days. See you, everybody. Have a great weekend.